After 17 years of marriage, my wife said she didn't love me all this time. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to share something like this. I'm not usually one for writing down emotions, and certainly not posting them online. But here I am. Maybe it's just that I need to let it out somewhere, someplace neutral, where I can write the words I can't say aloud. My name's Malcolm. I'm 44. I've been married, was married, for almost 17 years to a woman named Delia. She's 41. We have 2 children, 14 and 12, both middle schoolers. I work in environmental planning. It's not a flashy job, but it's steady and has always given us a good life. We live in a quiet neighborhood about 30 minutes outside of Raleigh. Typical middle-class family setup, house with a modest yard, annual beach trips, and a dog named Tansy that the kids picked out 5 years ago. For most of our marriage, I believed we were solid. Not fairy tale perfect, but close enough that I felt lucky. We had our routines, our Sunday grocery trips, our inside jokes. I thought we were the kind of couple that knew how to ride through the years with grace. 4 weeks ago, everything changed. I came home early from a field assessment. I'd wrapped up ahead of schedule, one of those rare days when everything just clicked into place. I was in a good mood. Thought maybe I'd surprise Delia, suggest we pick up the kids early from after-school activities and go out for dinner. Maybe one of those places with a patio, since the weather was nice. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed our bedroom window was open a crack. It was unusual, it wasn't hot out, and we don't normally leave the windows open during the day. As I stepped out of the car, I heard her voice drifting down through that open window. Not yelling, not laughing. Just talking. But something about the tone stopped me cold. At first, I assumed she was on the phone with her sister. Maybe venting about something small. But then I remembered, Thursdays at 2 p.m. That was when she had her weekly therapy session. She'd started seeing someone named Dr. Harwell about 7 months ago. She said she wanted to work on herself, some midlife things, maybe career restlessness. I supported her completely. Mental health is important. I even encouraged her to keep it up when she got discouraged in the beginning. I don't know why I didn't go inside like I normally would. Maybe it was the way her voice sounded, too frank, too detached. I found myself walking quietly around to the side of the house, the way the kids do when they're sneaking in after curfew. I stood just beyond the patio, out of view, and listened. I'll never forget the first words I heard clearly. Honestly, Dr. Harwell, I've never really been drawn to him. Not in that way. He's good on paper, dependable, checks all the boxes. But there's no spark. There never has been. The world seemed to tilt for a moment. My first instinct was denial, this couldn't be about me. Maybe she was talking about a past boyfriend. Maybe some hypothetical from years ago. But her voice continued, steady as a metronome. I fake everything. Every compliment, every kiss, every time I tell him I love him. I've gotten good at it. It's second nature now. But I stay because it would be foolish to leave. He provides, he's reliable. The kids are happy. Why risk it? That word, reliable, felt like a slap. Like it was something dull, a necessary evil rather than a virtue. I stood there frozen, heart pounding, mind racing to rewrite what I had just heard. Maybe it was therapy roleplay. Maybe she was being dramatic to get a reaction. Maybe anything other than what it was. And then, she said. He's never been hard to live with. But he's never been exciting either. It's like living in a well-organized library. Clean. Predictable. Quiet. No life. I must have made a sound. A crunch of leaves, maybe, or a shift in breath. Whatever it was, she came to the glass door and spotted me. We locked eyes. What I expected in that moment was surprise. Fear. Maybe shame. What I saw was irritation. Like I'd interrupted her during a commercial break. Then, a flicker of something else, calculation. I could see her mind working, trying to figure out what I'd heard, how much she needed to explain. What angle she could take to minimize the damage. What words might undo the unraveling. I didn't wait for her to speak. I stepped up to the door, looked her in the eye, and said, I heard everything. Don't bother. Then I left. I didn't pack a bag. Didn't take anything except my wallet and phone. I drove aimlessly for a while before ending up at a modest business-class hotel off the interstate. Checked in, turned off my phone, and sat on the edge of the bed for hours. Just sat there, staring at the carpet, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. 17 years. 2 children. A life we'd built together. And none of it was real, not from her end. Eventually, I called my older sister, Patrice. She and her husband offered their spare room, no questions asked. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. Told him everything. Told him I wanted a clean separation and guidance on what I needed to do to protect the kids. I didn't speak to Delia. She reached out, texted, called, emailed, but I ignored all of it. I wasn't ready. I didn't trust myself not to fall for a performance. I knew how convincing she could be. 2 days after I left, I returned to the house while she was at her pottery class. Packed a suitcase, grabbed some essentials, and left a note. It said simply, "You can contact me through my lawyer. For now, I'll be seeing the kids this weekend. I'll be in touch with a plan." That Saturday, I met the kids at a park across town. Told them Mom and Dad were going through some grown-up problems, but that we both loved them and always would. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, trying to smile through the tightness in my chest, watching my daughter cry without understanding why. Meanwhile, Delia's attempts to reach me escalated. When I didn't answer her directly, she turned to mutual friends. Then family. Even colleagues. The messages were always the same: "You misunderstood." It wasn't what it sounded like. It was just therapy talk. But I know what I heard. And I know when someone's telling the truth. Over the next week, the outreach became relentless. Delia started small, text messages first, usually a few each morning, then again in the evening. By day 3, they were coming every couple of hours. "Please talk to me. You're blowing this out of proportion. Can we at least sit down and talk for the kids' sake?" When I didn't reply, she pivoted: emails, voicemails, even a handwritten note slipped under the front door of my sister's house, though she'd sworn she didn't know where I was staying. The message never changed. Always some variation of, "You misheard. That wasn't how I meant it." But I knew better. I'd stood there and listened as she pulled back the curtain on our life and revealed it as little more than a well-rehearsed stage production. What do you say to someone who spent years performing affection? Years smiling through dinners, anniversaries, birthdays, and bedtime routines, all without sincerity? You say nothing. You walk away. But walking away doesn't mean you stop hurting. I didn't sleep much during those first weeks. The mind has a cruel way of replaying moments on a loop. Our wedding. The way she looked holding our newborn son. Her hand on my shoulder during my father's funeral. Were those moments part of the act, too? Had she just gotten that good at pretending? What made it worse was how convincing she was to everyone else. Delia is charming. Intelligent. The kind of woman who knows exactly how to make people feel comfortable around her. It wasn't long before people started contacting me directly. "Malcolm, she's devastated. You owe it to her to listen. Maybe she just said some things in therapy that didn't come out right." Even my own mother, who has never liked to meddle, called me one night with a soft voice. "Sweetheart, you two have been through so much together. Maybe don't throw it away so quickly. Everyone has doubts sometimes." Doubts. Is that what we're calling years of faked affection? I was still reeling, trying to sort out logistics with my lawyer and schedule time with the kids, when the worst realization hit me: I didn't know what memories were real anymore. That was the hardest part, not the betrayal itself, but the contamination. Every treasured moment was now under suspicion. The weekend beach trip we took 5 years ago, was she really enjoying herself, or was that just another performance? The night she hugged me in the kitchen after my job promotion, was that pride, or just part of the illusion? Did she ever love me? Did she ever try? I returned to the house once more, during a window when Delia was scheduled to be out, to gather the last of my belongings. I couldn't even look at our bedroom. The bed still perfectly made. My clothes still folded neatly in the closet. Like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't heard the words that shattered everything. On the kitchen counter, there was a note in her handwriting. "We can fix this. Please don't let 17 years go to waste." I didn't respond. Instead, I finalized the legal process. My attorney filed for divorce, and we proposed a 50-50 custody arrangement. It was the fairest option for the kids, even though the idea of them spending half their lives with someone who could lie so smoothly made my stomach twist. But they love their mother. And I know she loves them, in her own way. That part, I've never questioned. Whatever else Delia has done to me, she's always been a good parent. We agreed that the kids would stay in the family home during the week, since it was closer to their school, and I would have them every weekend and one weeknight. I rented a modest apartment about 20 minutes away. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, basic furniture, quiet building. But it was mine. And, more importantly, it was honest. No illusions. No stage. Just me. Work became a refuge. I started taking longer hours, more site visits. Anything to stay busy, to quiet the spiraling thoughts. I buried myself in project timelines and soil reports, structural proposals, and budget spreadsheets. It wasn't healthy, I know that now. But at the time, it felt better than sitting alone in a dim apartment, wondering how much of your life was fabricated. A month passed. That's when I saw Delia in person for the first time since I walked out. She showed up unannounced at my office. My receptionist, bless her heart, tried to keep her from coming back to my desk, but Delia insisted it was urgent. When I finally stepped out to see what was going on, there she was, standing by the coffee machine like we were old friends, like this wasn't wildly inappropriate. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just looked at me and said, "Malcolm, please." I didn't respond. I turned and walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat at my desk for an hour, staring at my screensaver. That evening, I got a call from my boss. He'd heard about the incident from the front desk. He didn't pry, just said he hoped everything was okay. He's been through a messy split himself and told me if I ever needed time off, it was mine. The shame I felt in that moment, being the subject of office whispers, the man whose wife made a scene, it was a new kind of humiliation. Not loud, not dramatic. Just quiet, slow-dripping shame. Soon after, her parents reached out. They showed up at my sister's place, though by then I was in my apartment. Apparently, Delia had told them I was being cold and heartless. That I'd left without reason. My sister sat them down and told them exactly what I'd heard, word for word. She said their expressions changed completely. I think, for the first time, they saw their daughter differently. I didn't want revenge. I still don't. I just wanted peace. But peace doesn't come easy when someone is determined to keep performing. I agreed, reluctantly, to joint sessions with a family therapist. Not to reconcile, but to discuss co-parenting. The kids were starting to feel the shift. My son had begun asking when I was coming back home, like this was just a temporary trip. My daughter grew quiet, her usual chatter replaced with silence and long stares. It broke me. They needed help. Real help. So we found a child therapist who specializes in divorce transitions. The cost didn't matter. What mattered was that our kids didn't become collateral damage in the collapse of a false marriage. And still, I hadn't cried. Not once. Not even during the long nights when I sat alone in my apartment, unable to sleep. Maybe I was numb. Maybe the grief hadn't fully arrived yet. Or maybe part of me was still waiting for the truth to be different. That would come later, along with Delia's final attempt to reclaim the narrative. It had been 6 weeks since I'd walked out when I finally allowed myself to respond, not in person and not in real time. Just an email. One single message, carefully written, carefully worded. I sat at my desk late one night, the kids asleep in the next room during one of our weekends together. The cursor blinked at me as I typed and deleted the opening line 5 times. Eventually, I settled on this. Delia, I need you to understand that I didn't mishear you. I stood outside that window and heard every word, clearly, unmistakably. You said you've never been drawn to me. You said you faked every loving gesture. You called our life predictable, lifeless. That wasn't therapy talk. That was truth. And I won't pretend otherwise. I told her she needed to stop contacting me directly. That the messages, the pop-ins, the guilt maneuvers, they weren't helping her case. If anything, they were solidifying my decision. I reminded her our focus needed to shift now, toward the kids. That was the only thing left to protect. I hit send and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. Her reply came the next day. It was long. Too long. The kind of email that starts in denial, detours into deflection, and ends with a pitch. The opening paragraph claimed I'd misunderstood her words. The middle part said she was processing internal conflicts and speaking metaphorically. Then came the pivot, blaming me. Apparently, according to Delia, I never made her feel emotionally supported. She said I was more like a manager of the home than a partner. That she felt invisible. That she didn't know how to express it, so she bottled it up. She needed an outlet, and therapy was where it finally came out. And then, in the closing paragraph, came the most telling sentence of all. I know I can make you happy if you'll give me another chance. I know exactly what you need. Not I'm sorry. Not I love you. Not I miss our family. Just a promise to play a new role. A new version of the same performance. It hit me in the chest like a bag of wet sand. Not because it was cruel, but because it proved she hadn't learned anything. She still thought this was something she could fix by rearranging her lines. Maybe if she acted right this time, I'd forgive her. Maybe if she adjusted her character, the audience would return to their seat. But I wasn't an audience anymore. We kept things professional from that point on. Communication went through our attorneys. The custody schedule became routine. The kids stayed with her during the week, went to school from the family home, and came to me on weekends and Wednesday evenings. I helped cover the mortgage until we could decide what to do with the house. My lawyer recommended we wait until the divorce was finalized to avoid any disputes about ownership or division. Some days were better than others. There were moments when the kids and I would be making pancakes or watching movies and I'd forget, just for a second, that our life had been turned inside out. Then one of them would say something like, "Mom didn't feel good today," or, "Why don't we all live in the same house anymore," and it would come rushing back. What stung most was watching them try to normalize it. Like they were stitching a new version of our family dynamic together with thread made of confusion and hope. They loved their mother. And I never tried to change that. I never spoke ill of her in front of them. Never hinted at the truth. But I could see it in their eyes, they were adjusting to the silence. Reading the temperature in the room before speaking. Carrying more than they should have to at their age. And then came the letter. About 2 months into our separation, Delia's sister stopped by my apartment unannounced. I didn't answer the door. I watched her through the peephole as she stood there, holding an envelope. After a few minutes, she slid it under the door and left. I stared at it for a long time. Sat on the floor across from it like it might catch fire if I touched it. In the end, I didn't open it. I placed it back in the envelope, sealed it, and returned it to Delia through our lawyers. My only message: please refrain from sending personal items through third parties. I didn't want another monologue. I didn't want to read a script written in hindsight, drafted to move me emotionally. I didn't want to hear her say how different things could be if only I would try again. Because I had tried. For 17 years. I had poured my whole heart into a marriage I believed in. I had shown up, every day, with consistency, love, patience, and presence. I wasn't perfect, no one is, but I was steady. I was real. The problem was, I thought I had a co-star. Turns out I was on stage alone. Around this time, I began therapy myself. At first, I thought it wasn't necessary. I wasn't falling apart, wasn't drinking, wasn't lashing out. But something wasn't right inside. I felt disconnected, not just from Delia, but from people. I didn't trust anyone's intentions. Compliments made me uneasy. Affection from coworkers or friends felt rehearsed. I questioned every word, every tone. Was this real? Were they being polite? Were they just saying what they thought I wanted to hear? My therapist gave it a name: relational trauma. She explained that when someone spends years in a relationship where they're unknowingly being deceived, their brain begins to question the very nature of sincerity. You start to doubt your instincts. Your gut feelings. Your understanding of human connection. That diagnosis, while clinical, made sense. It gave language to the fog I'd been living in. And slowly, piece by piece, I started coming back to myself. I spent time outside, walking through the neighborhood, headphones in, podcasts playing. I cooked meals that only I liked. I built a bookshelf for the kids' room in my apartment. I started journaling, not every day, but often enough that I could track my own emotional shifts. I created a life that was small but honest. I still hadn't dated. Couldn't bring myself to. The idea of opening my heart again felt impossible, like trying to rebuild a house with matchsticks. But I was beginning to believe that maybe, someday, I'd feel something again. Not now. But eventually. As for Delia, she moved on faster than I expected. It was a Wednesday night when I found out. My daughter and I were sitting on the living room floor of my apartment, putting together one of those 1,000-piece puzzles of a lighthouse scene. She liked puzzles, said they helped her think. We were about halfway through sorting pieces when she said, casually, Mom's friend from the gym came over last night. They made dinner together. I didn't react outwardly. Just nodded and said, oh yeah? Yeah, she replied, concentrating on the edge pieces. He brought soup. It smelled weird. And that was that. No emotional bombshell, no dramatic delivery. Just a piece of information tossed into the air like any other. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I sat on the couch staring at the puzzle, half-finished on the coffee table. I kept thinking about that man, this new person, sitting in the same kitchen where I'd once made breakfast every Saturday morning. Laughing, probably. Filling the space I'd worked so hard to build. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel anything. No jealousy. No anger. No desire to stop it. Just, quiet. There was a time when I would have imagined that moment breaking me. But by then, the bond had already been severed. The performance was over, and the curtains had been drawn. I'd already stepped out of the theater. The applause she sought was no longer mine to give. The contact had nearly disappeared by then. Only occasional messages remained, holidays, updates about the kids' activities, shared expenses. I responded when necessary. Brief, polite. Professional. No emotion. Her final attempt at something, closure, maybe, came on a crisp autumn afternoon. We were at a parent-teacher conference for our son, sitting side by side in the school library. The teacher had just left the table to print some materials when Delia turned to me and said, quietly, I miss how we used to be. Don't you? I didn't answer right away. I looked at the window behind her, at the kids playing outside on the field. I thought about the question, really thought about it. Then I said, I miss who I thought we were. That was all. She nodded slowly. Said nothing else. We didn't speak for the rest of the meeting. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. The papers were dry and impersonal, printed in ink that didn't reflect the weight they carried. There were no final arguments, no last-minute pleas. Just signatures and silence. We'd already made all the decisions. The children's schedule. The division of property. The future laid out in clauses and bullet points. She kept the house. I kept the quiet. The kids adjusted better than I expected. My son, in particular, seemed to settle into the rhythm of our new life. He started opening up more, even joking again. My daughter took longer, retreating into books and silence, but therapy helped. Gradually, she began speaking again, not just to her therapist, but to me. One evening, while we were driving to the grocery store, she asked, Are you happier now? I paused, hands still on the gearshift. I don't know if happier is the word, I told her. But I'm okay. And being okay is a good place to start. She looked out the window and nodded. I think I'm okay too. We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. Around the same time, my therapist said something that stayed with me. She told me that trust doesn't come back all at once. That it's like a garden, it grows slowly, through effort and consistency, and it can be trampled easily. But it can also be regrown. I've started trying to believe that. There's a woman in my building I sometimes talk to. Her name's Emery. She has a rescue dog named Button and a laugh that sneaks up on you. We've spoken a few times in the elevator, and once she asked if I'd like to join her and some friends for a trivia night at a cafe nearby. I said no. But I'm thinking of saying yes next time. Not because I'm ready to fall in love again. I'm not sure I'll ever love like that again, wide-eyed, fearless, unguarded. But maybe I'll learn to let someone walk beside me without constantly checking for signs they're wearing a mask. I still keep my guard up. Compliments feel foreign. Connection feels risky. But I'm not numb anymore. And that's a start. Sometimes I think about our old life, not to grieve it, but to study it. Like a relic in a museum. Something that once held meaning, but now just teaches me something about who I was. Delia will be okay. In her own way. She'll probably always live life like it's a well-choreographed play. I hope whoever joins her on stage knows what they're signing up for. As for me, I'm building something new. It's smaller. Simpler. There's no applause. No spotlight. Just a quiet room, 2 kids who know they're loved, and a man who finally knows the difference between being dependable and being seen. To anyone reading this who's questioning their reality, who's starting to notice the cracks beneath a perfectly painted surface, trust yourself. You're not crazy. You're not imagining things. Sometimes the greatest kindness you can give yourself is to believe your own eyes, even when everyone else tells you to look away. It's better to walk alone in truth than to stand beside someone in a carefully crafted lie. I'll be okay. The kids will be okay. We all will, just not together. Separately. And honestly. Thank you all for watching the video, and see you soon.